Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
I want to introduce my great author, John D. Sambalino, and he wrote this incredible book, and the book's called Is God in That Bottle Cap? Now, he's looking, it's a search for truth. Now, when I first picked this book up, I said, what could that be? But all you need to do is start to get into a first few pages, and you know you're really having a great opportunity to learn about things. So let's start off with you, John. You know, you are not a monk or a priest or something like that. You've actually been a lawyer. And
correct. And
so why don't we first talk about now, as this terrific author, tell me about why you would write a book like this and where, I know how you got the name, but why did you get the name Is God in That Bottle Cap?
Well, you know, I as a young age, I thought that there was something else going on besides what my senses were picking up. I wasn't sure what it is, but there was something else going on. I eventually came to realize that it was that if you learned this thing called enlightenment, if you became enlightened, that you would kind of figure out what it is. And I'm not an enlightened person, but I got on this path of meditation and spirituality and checking all this stuff out. And for years and years and years and years, I've been meditating a lot, 2-3 hours a day. And I talked to my friends and family about it and all this, you know, what's the meaning of life and what's really going on. They said, oh, you've got to write a book. You've got to write a book. So I said, you know, okay, I'll write a book. But I kept putting it off. And finally, after 45 years of meditating, I decided to write a book. So the title, Is God in That Bottle Cap, came from, I used to live in Charleston, South Carolina, and at lunchtime I would swim at the local YMCA. And one of the guys that I would swim with was this Christian minister. And every day he's going, oh, you know, you got to go to church. It's so important, this and that, and God and religion. And I said, well, you know, I meditate a couple hours a day. That's kind of my religion. I don't need to go to church. And he's always going in on me. So one day we were walking out to our cars after we went swimming, and he's going in again. Oh, you got to go to church, got to go to church. And I look down, and on the ground there's this bottle cap. And I go, hey, Dan, see that bottle cap? I go, is God in that bottle cap? And he looked at me with a smile, thought it was a joke. I said, no, seriously. I said, if God is everywhere, is he in that bottle cap, or is he everywhere except in that bottle cap? And then I said, how about the bullet that shot Kennedy? I said, was God in the bullet that shot Kennedy, or is God everywhere except for the bullet that shot Kennedy and except in that bottle cap? I said, if God is everywhere, he has to be in everything, including that bottle cap. And then we had a long conversation about God, reality, what the nature of you know, the material universe. And that's where the title came from.
Amazing. Yeah, you're very special. And as I told everyone when we first started the interview, the name, of course, of the book really gets people interested. But when it comes down to it and they find out what you've done, you've been very serious. I mean, when you tell me that you meditate 2 hours plus, it's like, I can't believe that. And you said you started as a very young person.
Well, I wasn't that young. I was 24. I mean, I you know, this might sound a little bit crazy, but when I was a little kid, my mother was Catholic. I was born Catholic. I would sit in church on Sundays, and I would go, what's going on? I go, how can there be this person, this Jesus Christ, that is this perfect human being, this perfect being, and I'm stuck in this human body? I said, it just did not seem right. Somehow I really felt that I got ripped off. I got gypped. How come I'm stuck in a body? and I thought, this is just not right. And I said, I looked around. I said, this just can't be the reality that I'm perceiving. And I had no clue what it was about. Then I went to college. I was 18 years old, and I picked up this book on karate. And it talked about these karate masters with all these amazing abilities, and it's talking about enlightenment. And I go, enlightenment? What's this enlightenment stuff? And then I got some books on Zen Buddhism, and I got a book by Paramahansa Yogananda, the autobiography of a yogi, and I'm reading all these books. And I go, oh, my God. I go, Jesus must have been an enlightened master just like these other guys, just like Buddha and Krishna and all these people. You know, they're enlightened masters. And I had to learn to become enlightened. And so I was 18 years old when I made that decision. This is what I got to do with my life. And it took me about 6 years before I actually started to meditate, but I did a lot of stuff. You know, I saw different masters and this and that and read a lot of books. And then when I was 24, I learned to meditate.
And I notice that you also, of course, I don't know if your parents said this to you, but you knew you had to do something to earn a living. So you decided to go into law.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my uncle was the my uncle was the on the head of the board of admissions at Tufts Medical School, and he says, "Oh, you got to be a doctor." And I go, "I don't think I want to be a doctor. That doesn't really appeal to me." But I thought if I was a lawyer, I could make a lot of money, and then I could quit and then just meditate a lot, and it would just be the easiest way to go. So I went to law school. I actually went to the University of Florida Law School. I got my law degree, my JD, and I also got a master's in law there in taxation.
Well, listening to you, I guess my question, and people who are listening are wondering, what do you do when you meditate? Just explain that to people.
Okay, well, meditation, people confuse meditation with contemplation. Meditation is just a technique. Well, let me go to contemplation. Contemplation is when you're thinking about something. So if you're sitting down with your eyes closed, eyes open, whatever, and you're trying to gather some information or learn something or know something or figure something out, that's contemplating. That's thinking about stuff. Meditation is not thinking about stuff. Meditation is just doing a technique which calms your mind, calms your body, and you go from the conscious level of thoughts to the subconscious level of thoughts, and then it drops into this place called the transcendence, where everything comes from. And it's like a silent awareness. So when you're in this spot, there's a silent awareness, which means you have an awareness, but there's nothing to be aware of. There's just pure awareness. There's nothing going on. Then when you pop out of that state, you go, what was that? 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes went by. It seemed like 2 seconds. What was that about? And that's the transcendence. And that's what underlies everything. And meditation is just a technique for us to experience that state of consciousness.
This is I'm so flabbergasted. I'm usually not at a loss for words, but it is so amazing to me to have someone like you who is a businessman. We haven't even gotten into that yet. So I'll bet you use your whole philosophy in your business, in what you do. I mean, you've produced movies, you've been really as a lawyer, you've done lots of business things, but excuse me. So how do you use that in everyday life?
Well, you don't really use it. What happens is you kind of change it at just a very integral level where you're just more calm, relaxed, and you see what's going on. And for me personally, this is what I say. I say most people will do anything for money. Seriously, I mean, you look at politics, look at everything. Most people do anything for money, and I like money as much as anybody else. But money's not my bottom line. I don't care. I've done business deals where I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I could care less. I mean, I don't want to lose that kind of money, but if I lose it, hey, I lost that money. What am I going to do? Cry about it? It's done, So it just enables you to go with things with kind of like a more even keel, and people like to do business with people that they like, and they like to do business with people that they trust, and it just comes off. You don't pretend to be like a trustworthy person. You are a trustworthy person. So it just kind of balances things out. You do your work, whatever happens.
Those are such wise words, John. My guest is the author of Book of the Month for September, and it's Is God in That Bottle Cap? A Search for Truth. And this is a gentleman who is very different from a lot of the authors whom I interview and review, because you can just hear him now. He could be a religious person and just doing that, or he could be a businessman and just do that, but he's combined everything. He's a life force. That's what I look at him as. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting for our listeners to know your travels, because you didn't do this casually. You were so inquisitive. You went all over the world searching.
Yeah, well, when you read about this stuff, when you read about enlightenment and these martial artists and all this kind of crazy stuff, a lot of it just seems to happen over in the eastern part of the world. It seems to happen in India and the Himalayas and this and that and this and that. So I kind of always wanted to go to those places. First, actually, the reason I became a lawyer was I thought that I had to go live in a cave in India and meditate until I became enlightened. So I was going to just drop everything and go live in a cave in India and meditate until I became enlightened. But then the more I came to realize you don't really have to go to India. Your room is your cave. But I've been to India 3 times. I've been to the Himalayas a couple of times, and I've meditated in the ashram where Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had his transcendental meditation retreat, or ashram, in Rishikesh, India, which is that famous place where the Beatles and Donovan and Mia Farrow were in 1968. And then I always wanted to hike the Himalayas. I thought I would go to Nepal, but I did some research and I realized that Nepal wasn't that clean and pristine. There was a lot of tourists and trafficky. So I went to Bhutan, which is a little kingdom just above the northeast corner of India, between India and Tibet. And then I went to Egypt. I read a book called A Search in Secret Egypt by this guy, Paul Bruton, and he said that really these ancient Egyptian monuments were not meant for just burial places for rulers, but they were meant for people gaining higher states of consciousness and this and that. So I went to India. I got to meditate in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and I kind of been around a little bit. So it's been a lot of fun. But what you come to realize is it's not the place. You're not going to get anything special by being at some kind of place. Wherever you are is where you are, and that's where your journey happens, where you are physically. So
I have to ask you about your parents. How are they handling this with you? I mean, you are unique, and you have a wife also. Now, answer how your family handles you.
Well, my dad died a few years ago. He was in his 90s, just gets kind of wore out, but he wasn't really that supportive. He was kind of a grouchy guy, and he would say, "Oh, you're staring at a wall, wasting your time staring at a wall." And it didn't bother me at all. I could care less. I knew what I was doing.
Sure.
So that's what I did. My wife, she's learned to meditate. She's learned Tai Chi, qigong, all the stuff that I do. She's learned it all, but she does not practice it. She's not really into it that much. She likes her tennis and her body pump and bridge and whatever. But she's very supportive. I've been meditating for a long, long time. I mean, I got married, I guess, about 8 years after. I've been with my wife for 46 years. Been with my wife.
Wow.
So, yeah. So a long time. So we've been married for like 37 years. Went out for like 8 years, whatever. So I've been meditating long before we got married, and she just lets me do my thing.
Good.
She knows she's into it, and she always kind of like she brings me down. She brings me down to reality. So the other day, I was teaching this qigong class, and qigong is like a Tai Chi thing. You get energy going through your body. And one of the guys in the advanced class, which I was teaching, just came up. He said, I don't really feel the energy, but the first time I ever felt it was when I was standing in front of you. I stood in front of you, and all of a sudden I feel this tremendous amount of energy. And I go, oh, that's kind of cool. And I come back, and I tell my wife, I said, this guy, he didn't feel it, but until he stand in front of me. And she goes, get over yourself, So she kind of brings me down to reality sometimes, But I wasn't telling her to brag. I was just telling her because I want to share it with my wife.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, she's a wonderful woman because that's what people are supposed to do. They are supposed to allow your partner or other people just do what you do. And I'm sure you are a fantastic husband because you're so sensitive and kind. You can't not be that way and investigate what you do. You just, it's all part of it. And so what I'm interested in, though, is now that you've written this book, and it's really a book that I have read it a few more times because when I first review a book, it's very quick. But now I have looked back at it, and not only have you been, let's say you're investigating, but you're a very good writer. So it's not a difficult book for people to read, and I've urged people this because of the name. People will say, well, what is it? I said, well, just read it. After a few paragraphs, or probably maybe the first chapter, you will love it. It's God. Is God in that bottle cap? A Search for Truth. And I've been able to explain that to people. So I'm really proud of you. So now, do you have another book in your head?
Well, maybe just a continuation of this book here, but I think I'm just going to wait a few years and see what else comes to mind. and then add. See, I don't really consider myself a writer. It's not that I wanted to write a book. It's just that I had something to say, and I just said, well, I better write a book.
Yeah.
Some people will say they want to be writers. Well, I didn't really want to be a writer. I
Right.
want to be like a meditator, or Tai Chi person.
Exactly.
But I had something to say, so I put it into this book.
Yeah. That's really what's happened here is but you had to share it. That's the whole point.
Absolutely.
That's why people do radio, they do TV. A lot of them are really egomaniacs, but I always say especially when I meet a lot of doctors who've never done radio, I said, listen, you're sitting in your office. I want people to know about you, but that's what you've done for yourself. And tell me some of the comments that your friends and business people have provided you after they've read your book or after you've talked about your book? That would be very interesting for me.
Well, I've never really thought about that, but people like the book. You know, I mean, it's very difficult to write a book like this because the spirituality kind of stuff, it's nothing you can put into words. I mean, you can have it's like what I say in the book, it's like the taste of a banana. If the ultimate reality was the taste of a banana, then you have to have the taste of a banana to know the ultimate reality. But no one can give you the taste of a banana. They can tell you about it, they can show you about it, whatever, but you have to actually taste the banana. And that's what the spirituality stuff is about. You'll never get it from a book. You'll never get it from Jesus Christ, Buddha, Krishna. I mean, they're experiencing the ultimate reality, but they can't give it to you. They can just talk about it. So people read the book and they like it. I mean, one guy read the book and he read it 2 or 3 times. He said, "Oh my God, this book is fantastic." And that's what I'm getting. I said they can't believe the book. And like you say, it is a very easy to read book, but it was difficult to write the book because it is impossible to put into words what I'm trying to talk about. So it took me a little over a year to write the book, but every single paragraph in that book took me 2 or 3 hours to get just the outline of the paragraph down, and then I probably edited it 10 times each paragraph, and then I've had it professionally edited twice just to get it so it flows better. But if you're looking at a tree, you can describe to somebody what a tree is. I mean, they can understand it. But but this kind of stuff you can't put into words. So really, the purpose of the book the reason that I wrote this book was for one purpose: to instill a belief in people that there's something else going on besides what their senses are picking up. There's something else going on, and whatever it is, it's worth checking out. And it's what Jesus described as the kingdom of God was within. There's something else going on. It's worth checking it out.
Yeah, and I think that's what you've created here. It takes, I'm sure, people who have certain religious beliefs, and if they will just take the time and read your book, it will make them question. Now, tell me about the minister. What wound up with him after you had this long discussion? What did he take away with this?
Well, I'm not really quite sure because he'd stopped coming to the Y and he quit the ministry.
Oh, I see.
Okay. You know, the same thing happened when we got married. I decided to get married. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I wanted to get married at church, so I got married in the Catholic Church. And so they have to give you this pre-marriage stuff where the priest sits down with you for a few days and is going, you know, and he's laying all this crazy stuff on me. And I said, okay, I've listened to your rap, now here's my rap.
Ah.
He quit the priesthood. You know, so it's not.
That's something. Wow.
Yeah. So what I think was people are trying to spread the word of God, but when they realize they don't have a clue, they just but they say maybe I better do a little more research, a little more in depth before I continue with this. But I talked to my mother-in-law one time. I just kind of laid this whole story on her. She goes, I've never heard anything like this in my whole life, ever. You know,
right.
But it's not different. See, meditation is part of all religions. It's just been kind of lost. I mean, Judaism has the Kabbalah. That's the mystical aspect of Judaism. They meditate. Islam has these Sufis from Sufism. They meditate. The Christianity, the ancient Christian mystics, they all meditated. You know, Buddhism, Hinduism, they all have meditation. They're all doing techniques to experience, you know, what Jesus Christ and Krishna experienced. People think that the religions are all different, but Buddha, Krishna, Christ, they're all experiencing the exact same thing. And then when they talk about it in their own traditions, but they're all experiencing the same thing.
You're a young person to be so I think, I would say, well preserved with all this. I mean, you're young enough, so by the time you're 80 and 90, I have no idea what you're going to be doing or where you're going to be, because you're very young in a way to have found all this. And I see your picture and you look very attractive, but eventually you're going to have a big white long beard or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not that young. I'm 69, but
well, you look good.
About 10 years ago, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, I said to myself, I can't wait till I retire so I can just let my hair grow long. I like long hair. I just can't wait to grow my hair long. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to wait. So I just didn't cut my hair for 7 years.
Oh, see, I brought up something. I don't know why I felt that with you.
Yeah, so so my hair was really long, and my wife said, "Oh, it's getting all over the place." And so I let it grow. So I cut it off, and I went to a beauty parlor to cut it off to give it to the locks of love, and they put a big bun on top of my head to cut it off, and I go, well, stop, don't cut it like that. I go, make lots of little ponytails and cut it off. She says, oh, I've never really cut it off from a man. Women, they want some hair left, so I had to cut at the top. So they cut it off, and I if I must say, I think I got pretty nice hair. So I gave my hair away, and now I can keep it short, but it's a lot easier short. But I like long hair.
Yeah, and that was good that you did that, because we do know that people who have cancer or other problems need that hair, and people sell it. Well, that was good. Well, you never stopped. So what's your diet like? Has it been affected by your research into all these religions?
Interesting you should ask. I just finished a 3.5 day water fast where I had water only. Yeah, what happens is this. It's not so much that the religions affect my diet. It's that when you do a lot of meditation, this kind of stuff, your system changes, and then your diet automatically kind of adjusts. So when I learned this advanced technique called the TM City program, you would go away for it was 4 months of meditating 8 hours a day, but it was spread out over several months. It wasn't all just back to back. So I was doing drugs at the time, smoking a lot of marijuana, smoked every day, and drinking a lot. It wasn't like a drug addict or an alcoholic. I just like to drink and get high. So I went on this course, and then I came back, and I just, I said, I'm just done doing drugs, because I did drugs for one reason. I enjoyed it, and I wanted to get high. Well, I was so high all the time. I mean, just like this crazy feeling felt so fantastic. I stopped doing drugs. And a few weeks later, I had a couple beers. I couldn't sleep at night. I felt lousy, and then a couple of weeks later, I had a couple of beers. I couldn't sleep. I felt lousy. I thought, oh my God, this is hard. My body, I can't drink. So I stopped drinking. When I was 27, I stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs. I was a coffee drinker since I've been a little kid. Actually, I was drinking coffee since I was like 2 or 3 years old, every single day.
With a lot of milk. That's right.
No. My favorite aunt was my Aunt Flossie. I was 4 years old. She drank her milk. She drank her coffee black, no cream, no sugar. 4 years old on, I drank my coffee black, no cream, no sugar. And then after this meditation course, one day I was having a cup of coffee in the morning, and my body felt jittery and nervous. I said, I didn't like that feeling. That's the last cup of coffee I ever had. 18 years ago, I stopped eating sugar. I don't eat any refined sugar of any kind. I'll eat honey and maple syrup, but I eat no refined sugar of any kind. So I'm a pretty healthy person. I still eat meat, because I enjoy it, but I don't like the idea of killing animals. So I used to eat meat, 2 or 3 times a day. Now I eat it 2 or 3 times a month. So I
figured that your diet had to reflect some of what you've been learning. That's really interesting. Your wife is even more interesting to me now after you tell me all about you. She's really one great spirit. She does it differently, but she does it differently,
but she's right there with me, and she's it's like my kids. My kids don't meditate. My one daughter is in medical school. She meditates a little bit. My kids don't meditate, but they're just like great kids. Because they respect what I do. I've been meditating long before my kids were born. And when they were little, I'd have a little sign on the door. I said, "Daddy's meditating. Do not disturb."
Oh.
And they knew it. So if the phone rang, or the doorbell came, they said, "Daddy's meditating. Daddy's meditating." And they used to call me like the dirty hippie because I had the long hair. My dad's a dirty hippie, this and that and that. But I know deep down that they really respect what I do, and they appreciate it.
And and maybe in our next interview, which we will have another one with you because we have about a minute left. Okay. Your business. I mean, I would really like to know more about what you created, because I'm sure everything you've done has some sort of an aspect of who you are now and what you've seen and what you know. And I wish you lived closer, because I'd love to just sit and talk with you more. But let's appreciate what you did, and I hope people will buy the book. I think you've heard enough from our author, John Sambalino, to know that book's got to be pretty special. Is God in That Bottle Cap? A Search for Truth. And it's John Sambalino. It's Sambalino. And it's, of course, if you have your magazine for September, be sure to go there. It's on page 22. And thank you, John, so much. And I'm not finished with you in the future.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much for having me on, Anita.
Thank you, John.
I really appreciated it.
Yeah, I do also. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.